are you?
How you? I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Good. Everything's great. Nice to meet you.
Meet you too.
So, you're up in Toronto, correct?
I am, yeah.
Okay, cool. Excellent. Well, I'm looking forward to getting into the new album and your life and music. I appreciate you taking a minute out.
Yeah, thanks.
You bet.
Love
So,
it.
let's begin our conversation with 4 years ago. We were trying to figure out this whole COVID thing, and I know that it wiped a lot out for musicians. So, how did you ultimately make it through that time period, and how did it either influence this album or change the way that you do things now?
Yeah. So I actually started this ensemble like 2 months before COVID hit. So that was a little bit of a shame because I was really excited about it and then couldn't do anything for a while. But as a lot of us did, I took advantage of the time to do a lot of composition. So I would say probably a good 60% of the songs on this album I did write during lockdown. So it was kind of a silver lining that I had the time to do all that work, and I'm really proud of the music that I wrote during that time. Um, and yeah, I actually ended up picking up another skill during lockdown. So now I work as a software developer as well as a musician. Yeah.
Okay. I guess that's a good silver lining offshoot. I know that a lot of the technical skills in the music community just amped up. So, and that can't be a bad thing for being in the studio and for all the things that you produce and put out there.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, that was something else that I got to study was the sort of production side of thing and getting into using Logic and Pro Tools, which isn't something I'd ever done before. So it
Yeah.
was nice to have the opportunity to look into that stuff.
Yeah. So let's get into Hold On to Me. Talk to me a little bit about how this album feels ultimately to have it put together, to have it out. You've talked about it was part of the pandemic, and now that we're kind of coming out, and live music is a possibility. How does this release feel?
It feels amazing, honestly. Yeah, I'm really proud of the music and I love my band so much. I think that they're the absolute perfect people to have playing this music. So I think that it really came together wonderfully at the time that it did, despite having to take a couple years off before we were able to really hit the ground running. Um, and yeah, things seem to be going really well. We've got a bunch of live performances coming up in radio play, and I think that this album is going to be kind of a jumping off point for us to really reach the stars.
Absolutely. So, Paloma Sky is the band. Talk to me about how you all came together. How did this all ultimately happen?
Yeah. So the main featured artist in the band, besides myself, is Jocelyn Barth, our lead vocalist. And she and I actually grew up together. Our parents were roommates when she was born. So we've known each other our whole lives and actually got into jazz kind of independently. But we came back together, I think around 2016 when she sang in my 12th the Marie Goudy 12th, and we did another album with that ensemble. Um, and yeah, she's kind of the reason that I got into songwriting and writing music with lyrics. So I definitely owe a lot to her for that. And I write all my music kind of with her voice and style in mind. Yeah, and then the rest of the band, our bass player Nick Arsenault is an old roommate of mine from back in our university days, and he's just uh, the greatest guy and super on upright and electric bass and also singing. And our drummer Andrew Scott uh, just like has a magic touch. We've when he has to sub out, we sometimes play with other drummers, and although they're all fantastic, like nobody really hits exactly the vibe that I want the way that Andrew does. So I'm really glad to have him in the ensemble. And then yeah, our piano player Stu Harrison he's the newest addition to the ensemble, and he's also just completely fantastic, really great person, and has the exact right sort of pop and jazz sensibility and just like really killing solos that I'm looking for in a piano player.
So, what are you hoping the listener gets from this album?
Um, I like to write my songs kind of as if I was writing a story, not necessarily from the lyrics, although that's part of it, but from a compositional angle as well. Um, so I'm hoping that the listener can kind of understand where I'm coming from, where I sort of set the stage or the plot, as you will, with a certain harmonic progression and melodic progression, and then at some point in the song I throw in like what I call plot twists, where I completely go out of left field harmonically or sonically or something. And that I think is probably the most defining part of my writing, is that I really want to be able to kind of delight the ear with these pop jazz songs that have these little like swerves in
Yeah.
them that you don't expect.
So how did this journey begin for you? Take me back to where you were born and raised and how music and more specifically jazz evolved into your career and life.
Yeah. Um, so I was born in Toronto. And my dad is a piano player, so he sat me at the piano before I could walk. There's some really cute pictures of me as a little baby sitting at the piano. Um, and as a lot of kids do, I hated piano lessons and never wanted to practice, but I'm really glad that he made me do it, because then when I picked up the trumpet when I was around 11, I was like, oh, this is the instrument for me. And I just kind of fell in love with it immediately. And having that foundation in piano and music theory kind of helped me to catapult my way into really being like a professional trumpet player. So I started playing professionally when I was 16 in a local big band, and then went to the University of Toronto in the jazz program. Actually, it's a little bit of a funny story. I wasn't much of an improviser in high school. I did a lot of classical playing, and I was kind of scared to improvise, but I thought, I'll just apply it to the jazz program. Like, what the heck? What's the worst that could happen? So it was really last minute, and I was like, okay, I guess I gotta teach myself how to improvise now. I've got my audition in a month. And then I ended up getting in, and that kind of started me on the trajectory of being primarily a jazz player.
So what was the first live jazz show you saw that blew you away or made you, or a recording that made you want to be a musician and get on stage?
I've always really loved large ensemble recordings. So I know this is a little bit basic, but when I was in high school, I just absolutely loved Gordon Goodwin's Big Fat Band.
Yeah.
Uh, just like the incredible, powerful trumpets in that, and like the solos and the arrangements. I just thought that that was the absolute coolest thing. So that kind of propelled me into wanting to explore that more.
So what do you like the best about being a professional musician?
The people I get to meet and the amazing things I get to do. Like, I think about this often, that I get these opportunities that people who aren't in creative fields probably don't get to do. Like, getting flown to Singapore to play at the Formula One Grand Prix and things like that. And, of course, I guess this makes me sound a little bit shallow. Can we try that question again? Or are
Oh,
we live?
yeah, yeah, we can. Yeah, I just wanted to know what the best part of being a professional musician is.
Yeah. I mean, it's that, of course, also like getting to express myself creatively and meet all these amazing people and be part of a community. I think that's probably the best part, but also it's the perks of being able to get uh really cool opportunities that I wouldn't otherwise.
So why do you love jazz?
Ooh, I guess it's so vast. Like, it's almost even hard to define. It just kind of permeates every style of music, or it can. So, like, being able to listen to all these different styles of jazz, and it's like always fresh, and hearing the the rawness and the passion of these players if you're listening to like mostly improvisational jazz versus listening to these incredible arrangements if you're listening to more orchestral jazz like Maria Schneider, like also peppered with the passionate playing. Yeah, it's just for listening, I would say that's the main reason I love it. And then for playing, kind of in a similar vein, just the way that it can be applied to any style of music. And I do play many different styles of music, and I think my jazz expertise really helps me shine in any kind of capacity.
So with this release and just in general, let's say we talk 10 years from now, where do you want to see your career go? What do you want to do?
I would love to, well, 10 years, yeah, I want to release at least two more albums in that span of time. And I really would love to travel the world with this ensemble. I think that we're something really special. So I want to be able to share this music with the world and also kind of get my process and of songwriting more out into the world. I did a master class on songwriting at the University of Toronto a couple of years ago, and it was really amazing to get to share my process with these students. And I would love to be able to spread that more widely and kind of, what's the word? Like make a name for myself as a songwriter because I think that's one of my biggest talents.
So if you could get into a time machine and go back in time and see one jazz show with your own eyes, where are you going to go?
Ooh. I would really like to see the Chris Potter show at, I think it was the Vanguard where they recorded Pop Tune #1. That's one of my all-time favorite recordings. And I think, well, like you can hear the crowd on the recording, they're like losing their minds. And I think
Yeah.
being able to be there at that time would have been incredibly special.
So at the end of the day, Marie, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, fans, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Deep question.
Yes.
Um, who do I think I am? I think that I'm somebody who has a knack for songwriting and like being able to bring together musicians to make something really beautiful out of music that might be kind of on the simpler side. And uh, it's not something I've ever thought about before.
It's a good answer. Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah. So
Yeah.
let me ask you this. If anyone wants to pick up the album in the proper way to benefit you and the band, catch you live, any of the good business in your world, where can they go?
So our album is on Bandcamp. If you go to bandcamp.com/Marie Goudy, you'll find it there, as well as my last album with the Marie Goudy 12th. And you can also go to my website or the Paloma Sky website, either mariegoudy.com or palomasky.ca, and we've got all of our upcoming shows listed there.
Okay, wonderful. Marie, this has been great. Thank you so much. Thanks for taking a minute out. Best of luck with the release and everything as the decade moves on.
Thank you. So nice to talk to you.
Nice talking to you.